Well, because I was down with the... I wasn't able to see Scream 6 when it was first released last week. While everyone is now oohing and aahing at John Wick 4, and having seen that as well, I have to say it is worth oohing and aahing at. But let's talk about the latest installment of Scream, the never-ending self-referentialist slasher series, once again written and directed by the filmmaking group known as Radio Silence. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Scream 6 is in theaters now. It's directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, and written by James Vanderbilt, Guy Busick, from characters created by Kevin Williamson. Sam, played by Melissa Barrera, and her sister Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, have followed their friends and fellow survivors of the last massacre at Woodsboro to go to school in New York. While Sam has become secretive and reclusive after the attack, Tara refused to let the bad guys win and is trying to live her life with no worries or F's given. Sam is overprotective of Tara, which pushes her away from her all the more. Sam is also being blamed for the deaths that occurred in the last film because she's the daughter of Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, one of the murderers from the first Scream film, and the girlfriend of the killer from the last film. She should have known, it's always the boyfriend. When the murders begin again, by a cloaked person wearing a ghost-faced mask and using the killer's usual cell phone motif, Sam, Tara, and their friends are again running for their lives, except this time through the streets of New York City. While I'll refrain from doing a best to worst Scream comparison, maybe I'll do one later, I will say I feel Scream 6 is much better than the previous entry. If you liked what Radio Silence, Ortega, and Barrera offered up in the last one, you'll get all that and a bit more in this new one. The filmmakers realized that their previous film was less reliant on the chase scene, so they added in quite a few nicely constructed scenes occurring through the streets of New York, and also added some original set pieces that the series hasn't really used before. There's a wonderfully filmed scene, reminiscent of Rear Window and scores of other films after it, where a murder is occurring from another building and someone witnesses it and is frantically trying to warn them about the killer. Edited crisply, this was one of the more tension-filled scenes of the movie, with the subway scene a close second as the tensest scene you'll find in this film. I also have to give credit for the team coming up with an opening that manages to feel fresh in this, the sixth installment of the franchise. Yes, there is another Drew Barrymore damsel talking on the phone, but this time it's the stunning Samara Weaving who starred in Radio Silence's Ready or Not. And the way the opener plays out really works well as something slightly different from the norm. The final set piece, made up as some sort of shrine to all of the Scream killers who have come before, serves its purpose as its repurposed movie theater, which itself is a nice incentive to see this film in the theater for a more meta experience. Now let's look at some of the things I felt were addressed since the last installment. The acting is better, and having a movie refer back to its leads works well to make this new generation of Scream cast members feel more lived in. I wasn't bowled over with Melissa Barrera in the fifth one, and felt she was reading lines rather than feeling the character. Her Sam has much more to work with here, and there's a nice evolution for her character that I hope we'll see more of in the eventual next one. She's much more nuanced and darker in Scream 6, and works well with Jenna Ortega, not letting the Little Wednesday star overshadow her with her newfound superstardom. Ortega also plays a rather complex character, and the two cinematic sisters get some nice growth to their relationship. The rest of the cast is hit and miss. Returning characters Mindy, played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, and Chad, played by Mason Gooding, are okay, but I feel both of these actors need a little bit more time in the acting pressure cooker to deliver lines on the level of their co-stars. These two are supposedly the niece and nephew of Randy, played in the original by Jamie Kennedy, so of course she provides a lot of the self-referential and meta-commentary. More on this later. The other returning characters deliver their lines capably, but just sort of exist in this franchise for nostalgia's sake. I'm talking about walking skeleton Courtney Cox, who plays reporter/writer Gale Weathers, and the missing person since Heroes Hayden Panettiere, who plays the horror movie addicted Kirby, who has now become an FBI agent specializing in ghost-face killings and their copycats. Panettiere gets more to work with here with less screen time, as she has a fun debate with Mindy about their favorite scary movies and serves as an interesting suspect for the killings. While she has aged, she hasn't really gone down the troubled, over-plastic surgeried highway many aging actresses descend into. Cox, on the other hand, well, to put it kindly, I really think she should just take it easy. I know with the death of Dewey in the last one, there aren't many of the original cast members left, but she has no real purpose other than being a potential victim in this new installment. They don't even give Cox some time to mourn Dewey's death, a character development that I would have welcomed and would have thought have been more important to this series. Like Neve Campbell, I wish he would have sat this one out. And again, it pains me to see how much work the actress has done to herself and how worse it gets from one film to the next. Some of the new cast members are okay. Though she simply serves as the other lesbian and not much else, Devin Nakota does seem to be a pretty strong actress. I also really liked Liana Liberato's aloof, sexually liberated Quinn, who sleeps with a lot of guys and wears it like a badge of honor. You might remember her from The Beach House from a few years ago. Finally, Dermot Mulroney delivers probably one of the most hammiest performances he's done since Dirty Steve in Young Guns, as the police officer attached to the case and the father of Quinn. One of the things I noticed was that the meta-commentary has been whittled down to as small as it can possibly get. While there are some fun homages to horror lore, I especially liked the Jason Takes Manhattan nod, and there is some fun movie banter going on between Kirby and Mindy, who I guarantee will be set up together in the next film. The traditional setting up of the rules of the movie scene is one of the weaker of this movie. At this point, Scream is as much of a cliche as the rest of the horror genre, so as a result, it references itself, more so than the horror genre it fits into. While Scream 5 felt it was a tribute to the first film, in many ways, Scream 6 is a tribute to Scream 2, with its better chase sequences and other details that would get into spoiler territory if I talked about them, so I won't. With all the references to Billy Loomis, the series has become a snake eating its own tail. The reveal works. It's fun because the shrine/movie theater setting gives the characters a nice dramatic place to play out the climax. It's goofy, and of course the characters, who were once supposed to be allies, are now gleeful psychos, but this is as common in the Scream series as unmaskings are in the Friday the 13th series. I wasn't mad at it once the killers were revealed, and they actually seemed to pose a real physical challenge to the group of heroes. That said, I guessed who the killer was pretty early on. My biggest gripe with Scream 6 is the same thing I pointed out in Scream 5, that being that everyone in this film who has survived one movie to the next should be shitting in a bag for the rest of their lives. The entire group of survivors, and there's a lot of them, takes extensive knife damage to their stomachs. But because Quentin Tarantino said that it takes a long time for someone to bleed out from a gut wound 30 years ago, Hollywood basically has accepted the fact that no matter how much rearranging of organs with a Rambo knife there is, all the survivors need is an aluminum shock blanket and an ace bandage to live on for the next movie. Hell, a handful of survivors have taken multiple deep wounds to their torso, yet have cheated death, gotten sewn back up, and will most definitely be ready to sprint, screw, and take their shirts off to reveal rock-hard abs in the next one. It's well past the point of parody and makes me slap my head every time I see it. It's just gotten ridiculous. The other problems is that the cast of people with plot armor has grown to a size that is extremely cumbersome. The reason the first few films began to falter was the hurdles that needed to be leapt in order to give all of the survivors something to do in the movie. It's grown to twice that size by the end of this one. Hopefully, some of these survivors will get cacked for good in the next one. I'm all for another. This is by far one of the most effective films at doing what these films do that we've gotten in a long time. Scream 6 definitely has some ridiculous moments, but it also retains a freshness that a lot of horror franchises have failed to achieve at this point in their series. Bring back radio silence and bring on Screamin, or whatever the hell they're going to call the next one.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're